Right? That's all we're having today. Shaul, yeah, Shaul was here before my mincha.
And Daryl's here. It's upstairs.
Okay. Good enough for me.
Yusuf? It's yours? Sorry, it's Meredith. I can't give it to you. Oh wait, you know what? That's mine. I'm sorry. I just took it out of my pocket. That was kind of stupid.
Okay. We are on the line, just about a third down the page, maybe a little less. Hachaya shel ho'elamis. He is. I was asking, what is the inyan of a zichroinus? Zichroinus is appropriate, is applicable to a situation where you have to remind of something that you are not constantly aware of. But since Lamaila, there is constant awareness. Why do we say there's constant awareness? Besides the inyan, the way it is Lamaila. But since that everything is created by Hashem constantly, and this creation is coming through the fact that He knows everything, so therefore there's a constant knowledge. If not for this knowledge, there would be no entity, no being. So he said this constant knowledge, even at the level of Das Elyon, which is a makif, is nevertheless an aspect of knowledge. And therefore, in other words, it is not just a general knowledge, but it is an aspect of knowledge, of precise knowledge. Except it's milmailo lamato, as we discussed the other day. And then he says, "Ubifrat," and moreover, hayidiyah, the das tachtin, particularly if we say that there is das tachtin, and there is also the idea, the das tachtin, shehi bebchines islapshus mamash. The idea of das tachtin is in real hislapshus. Hislapshus, we explained that there is an actual a relation to the matter, to the object that is known, just like knowledge by touch, where you have an actual connection to the object itself. The idea of das tachtin. Das tachtin means that you know the object first, and then you recognize what's its source and what it represents. This union of das tachtin normally we say that Lamailo is das Elyon and Lamato is das tachtin. We know it the way it is milmato Lamailo. But really it says Keil Deus Avaya, that Hashem Himself provides both of these days. Hashem Himself provides both of these days, the Das Elyon and also the Das Tachtin, which means that Hashem descends down to the very creation itself, to know it, so to speak, directly, as if by relating, by touching it. So it's Deus Avaya, 2 days, Das Tachtin. So Das Tachtin is V'Islapshus Mamash. So in Cain, and thus the question is, Eich shayach loimer ine hazikorin lamailo. Where is the inyan of zikorin applicable? How can there be zikorin means you have to remind, but there's no reminding if there's constant sight and constant recognition. Begam tzorich lahovin. We also need to understand haseder, the order of malchiyoi, zichroines, v'sheichos. The order in which we say these set of psukim. The oimrim, when we say psuki zichroines, the psukim of zichroines, of remembrance, we say achar psukim malchiyos. We say them after the psukim of malchiyos. Malchiyos is establishing Hashem as king, and zichroines is that Hashem should remember us. It would seem more appropriate that hoyo tzrichim lahagdim psuke zichroines lemalchiyos. It would be more appropriate, it would seem, to precede, to first say psuke zichroines, and then malchiyos. Why? Because the le'achar shenimshach bechinas hamelucha. Because if, after we say malchiyos, which means that we already established the kingdom, and that Hashem is already king, king means that he relates to his subjects. It is no longer possible shehamelech yishkach al amei, that the king should forget his nation. How is it conceivable that the king should forget his nation? So that the concept of zikorin, of remembrance, would be applicable. Again, even though this is brought down in such a brief reference, but I want to explain this union because it has a very profound and very rich concept. Not in great detail, but just a little insight. He says, how is it conceivable? How is it shayach? How is it possible that the melech should forget his nation? And therefore, to remind is totally out of place. Shalom, you want to know where we're up to? Yeah. We're on page Gimel. Right. The third down the page, the line starts with the word Hamlucha. No, it's put down the page, not. It's from the top. From the top, a third page down, the line begins with the word Hamlucha. Okay, you have it? In a Shayach Sha'amelech Yishkach Alamei. It's not possible that the Melech should forget his nation. There is something very unique about the relationship of the king and his nation. First of all, I have to mention that when we say king, we're talking about king in a true sense of the word. A king, as Torah defines king, because as we know, and I mentioned early on, that kingship and rulership has kind of deteriorated over the years, and a king, instead of being a king, he became a tyrant, and that's why the world just rebelled and threw him off. But the king, as Torah defines king, is a true, a very meaningful relationship. As a matter of fact, the king is the one who truly represents his whole nation and elevates his whole nation to a much higher level. And the relationship between the king and the nation and the people and the king is extremely significant. The people voluntarily and willingly, not only willingly, but they pray and wish that the king should be their king, and they are dedicating themselves to the king with all their hearts and souls. The relationship, as I started saying, between the king and his nation is very unique. the the uniqueness of this relationship will be understood as follows. The king is essentially, before he is king, he is an individual. He's a person unto himself. And the people are independent of him. But being a person unto himself, an independent, private individual, he inherently, by nature, Hashem has bestowed upon this king certain quality, a quality of elevation, a quality of superior quality. Whereby he can, by virtue of people just relating to him, besides not in the sense of not by process of teaching them, like a Rosh Yeshiva, like a teacher is teaching his people. When a teacher teaches, the relationship is not to the person, it is to his teaching, to his seichel, let's call it. He has a very profound seichel, and you relate to his seichel. The king and the people are relating on a total different level. It is a person-to-person relationship. To the extent that the whole nation is called by the name of the king. This is this king's nation. And every subject, every individual in that kingdom is proud to say, I am a subject of this king. And this is what defines him. How was this formed? Very, very briefly. The king is different than a teacher. A teacher, excuse me, has learned, and this knowledge that he has accumulated from learning is now present in his mind. And the people who are coming to learn from him are coming to learn from him that knowledge that he accumulated. They don't come to a chacham to learn because he's potentially a chacham, because he could learn. If he wants to, he could learn. You come to him because he already learned. And you come to get from him that which he already knows. Which means he is a chacham prior to becoming a teacher. And that which he teaches, he already knows before he actually starts teaching. Of course, during the teaching, his preparation for teaching, he has to formulate it in a way that can be transmitted and can be explained, but that's just in the method of teaching. But what he is teaching, the thoughts and the concepts, the insights and the knowledge, is all there prior to this teaching. A king, the process of a king is a totally different one. The king, with all the qualities that he has, is totally unaware of the fact that he has kingly qualities. He's not involved in this. He's not interested. Again, we have to project a true king. He is not interested in rulership. He is not interested in bestowing any hashpah. He is above the whole fray. And he is interested actually to be involved in his own thoughts and his own pursuits. What reveals in the king, what elicits in the king even the awareness that he can bestow, that he can be mashpia, he can give something to the king, to the people. It is the very subjugation, the very request of the people. When they come to him and say, we want you to be our king, this is when he first becomes aware, or maybe he can be king. Maybe he has that quality. Besides, outside of that, before that, he's not even aware of it. Not only is he not aware of it, but the quality of rulership as a king, in fact, does not exist in him. It exists in potential. It's just like a chacham, for instance, who has not learned, but if he learned, he would be a goen. He would be of great knowledge. But he hasn't learned. So the king inherently has that quality in his soul. But he is totally unaware and he has never used it. It has never been developed. It's really in a non-existent state in terms of practical existence. And then the people come to the king and they elicit from him this consent that he should be their king. Therefore, it means that his becoming king and them becoming his subjects comes at the very same time. Without them, being subject, he is not king. They make him into a king, and thereby they become his subjects. As long as there are subjects, he is king. If there are no subject, he is not king. So as long as they are subject, as long as he is king, he has to be aware that there are subjects. Because without the subject, he is not king. This is what he says over here. How is it possible that a king should forget his muluch, he should forget his people? It's one and the same thing. His being king and being aware of his subject is in one and the same thing. Without aware of the subject, he is not king. V'im kein, thus, at the end of this line, Hamluch. V'im kein and thus, le'achar sho'im in psukim malchiyos. Once we said the psukim of malchiyos. She'al idei zeh tamlichuni aleichem. As the Gemara says, that Hashem says that by saying psukim malchiyos, tamlichuni aleichem, you will coronate me as king on you, on top of you. Ma mokoim oid li psuki zichroines. What room is there further after that, psukim zichroines, because now zichroines means to remember, but there's no possibility of forgetting at that point. Therefore, Malchiyos should have come, if you want to say zichroines should precede Malchiyos, not succeeded. The Gama in a movement, and then furthermore we don't understand. Ma sho'oim nim psuki shoifreis lebesof. But at the very last, the third set of psukim is shoifres that speak about Matan Torah and speak about the Shofar. And that we say at the very end. And again, this too, it would seem that hoyetzirichim lahaskil b'shoifres. The first thing should have been shofars. They should have begun with shofars. Why? Meyachad the malchiyos v'zichroines tolu b'shoifres. Since, as the Gemara says, Malchiyos and Zichroines, in order to affect the union of Malchiyos, and in order to affect the union of Zichroines, it has to go with Shofar, because ultimately it says, Bameh ba Shofar. Shofar is what ultimately affects it all. Tolu b'Shofar, that should have been the very start. That should be the first thing we do, we say. Vehagam, although this is kind of modifying this last question, that shofar should have been the first. So he says, even though in truth, tkiya shofar hu koidem lebircha is malchus zichroines. The first blow shofar, that's the seder of Tfilas Rosh Hashana. First we blow shofar, and then we say the Shemoneh Esrei of Musaf, in which we say malchus zichroines v'shofars. So we actually do start by Tkiyas Shofar. So therefore this is kind of modifies this question. It says we do start with Tkiyas Shofar, Koydem Birchas, but Mikol Mokoim, still, it would seem that it would be more appropriate, Loimar, Gam Psuki Shefes Kedem Malchis. Not only the blowing of Shefes should be first, but saying the Psukim of Shefes should also have been before Malchis. Im loy shenoima, unless we say, since we don't say Shefres before Malchus, we say Shefres at the end. Therefore, we might want to say the Hamshoch as Malchus v'zichroinos, that the union of the Hamshoch of bringing down Malchus and zichroinos, who alidei tkiyas shoifer levat. It is only by tkiyas shoifer, not by the saying the psukim of shofars. Tkiyas shoifer alone, that's what affects it. So therefore, that's enough. That's why we did this being first is enough. But in kein tzorich lohavin. But then we have another question. If that's so, we need to understand the lefi according to this, arei de amir as shoifres sheyacher malchiyos v'zichroinos. Saying the psukim of shoifres which come after malchus v'zichroinos. Einoi bishvil malchiyos levad is not just to affect malchiyos and Sarah malchiyos and zichroinos. Shezehu alidei tkiyas shoifer. Because this union of malchiyos and zichroinos is affected by tkiyas shoifer, which we do first. So therefore we need to understand Mahu inyan ha-shoifer shekoida malchus v'zichroinos. What is the union of shoifers that precede malchus v'zichroinos? Mahu hu-amiras shoifer she'achar malchus. And what is the significance of the psukim of shoifers that we say after malchus and zichroinos?
Why is there a question on the tkiyas shoifer?
There's no question on the tkiyas shoifer, but we need to understand. In other words, it seems that there is a union for tkiyas shoifer before malchus and zichroinos.
That affects the malchus and zichroinos.
Right, and there is something in shoifer that comes after, because the fact is we say the psukim of shoifers afterwards. So there are two aspects in shoifer: one that precedes malchus and zichroinos, one that succeeds. What are the two inyanim in shoifer? Then he says parenthetically, further, the lama. Now we need to understand another inyan. These are all not in the form of kashas, of contradictions. This is in the form of opening up the field for showing that there's a broad field that needs to be explained. Lama, why is it that Rosh Hashana shechal b'Shabbos, and Rosh Hashana that comes out on Shabbos, ein toikin, where we do not blow shofar, mikol mokoim, ha-shofrais, she'achar malchiyos oimrim. And yet the psukim of shofars that come after malchiyos, that oimrim os gamkin, we say then on Shabbos also. In other words, the shofar, the blowing of the shofar which precedes malchiyos zichroinos is not applicable on Shabbos. But the shofar that comes after malchiyos zichroinos, that is applicable on Shabbos. V'gam lefi hanal. And then now we have another emphasis in our original kasha, according to what we said now, the hamshochas malchi v'zichroinos, that the hamshocha, the drawing down and the affecting of malchus and zichroinos, hu alidei tkiyas shofar dafka, is exclusively by blowing the shofar, not by saying the psukim of shofars. Now the original kasha that we ask, the big kasha in this maimer, becomes even more emphatic. What is it? How do we affect the union of malchus and zichroinos on Rosh Hashana shechal b'Shabbos? So you can't say that it's because we say the psukim afterwards, but we said just now that the ikir is through blowing the shofar itself.
I know you said that this isn't like a kasha to find the stira.
Right.
But here it says, so what's the union of saying shofars? If we don't blow shofars, we said the reason we don't blow shofar if it's Chol on Shabbos is Gezer Derabba, right? So how does that apply? So we know why we don't blow the shofar on Shabbos. Why? Not what, how can we affect it, but why? So what's the question? So then why do we say this on Shabbos? There's no problem with the Gezerah of Abba to say this on Shabbos.
You're absolutely right. No, you have to understand the question slightly differently. It's like a Hasidic approach. Everything we do has a significance. We don't do it just because it's a nice thing to do. And so we say shofar is a central inyan in Rosh Hashana. And it's so central that everything that occurs, everything that we accomplish on Rosh Hashanah is actually accomplished. We say what we want to accomplish, but how do we really accomplish it? By the blowing of the shofar. And this is why we blow shofar before anything. The first thing we do is blow shofar, and then we start saying the psukim. All fine and good. So therefore shofar has to precede everything. Why then do we come afterwards and start saying psukim of shofars? Where does that come in? We already did shofar. Since we do say psukim of shofars, what does that tell us? That there is a significance. It's not a question of permissibility. There's a significance of shofar after Malchus and Zichronis. There is a union of shofar that precedes Malchus and Zichronis. There is a union of shofar that succeeds Malchus and Zichronis. Which in the psukim, in other words, this union that we say shofar is after Malchus and Zichronis, it's true, it's psukim. But it's psukim of shofar, which means that there is a union of shofar that has to come after Malchus and Zichronis. Now we're saying this. On Shabbos, we do not blow shofar. For whatever, the reason that we don't blow shofar is, we said, Gezerah de Rabbah. But nevertheless, clearly, as we are going to, as the question is, somehow this has to be substituted on Shabbos, because the effect of Rosh Hashanah has to happen on Shabbos too. So somehow this is substituted. Some way this is accomplished without shofar. If it is accomplished without shofar, why do we then come back and say the psukim of shofar after Malchus and Zichronis? If shofar on Rosh Hashanah is substituted by something else, the whole union of shofar should not be mentioned, because Shabbos substitutes for shofars. So what do we say? We see here that Shabbos, however it is, substitute for the shofar that precedes Malchus and Zichronis, but it does not take the place of the shofars that succeeds Malchus and Zichronis. That's the question. Why do we say shofars afterwards? We're still in the preparation for the Hemshech, all asking the various questions and pointing to the various inyonim that clearly say that we need to get into the depth of this. Hatkiya is the Malchia is Zichroines v'Shoifres. The Tkiyas, every set of these psukim, Malchis, Zichroines v'Shoifres, then afterwards we blow the shofar. We say psukim Malchis, we blow shofar. We say psukim Zichroines, we say blow shofar. We say psukim shofars, we say blow shofars. So the Gemara says, the Atkiyas, the Malchis, Zichroines v'Shoifres, the Atkiyas of the blowing shofar, lom to be Gemara. The Gemara learns out that we have to blow shofar 3 times. The Gemara learns it out, mehabeis truoi shenemar b'Rosh Hashana. Because in the Torah, Truah, v'avartam shofar Truah, Truah is mentioned by Rosh Hashanah twice in the Torah, ve'achaz b'Yom Kippurim. And one time, the Truah is mentioned in Yom Kippur. So therefore we have 3 times, and this is why Shenemar, as the Pasuk says, va'avarto shofar Truah, by Yom Kippur. So because there's this remez in the Torah, a Rosh Hashanah Truah is mentioned twice, and Yom Kippur mentioned once, therefore we have 3 times. This is why we blow 3 times, 3 sets of tkiyas. We want to understand Loma Nemar Shtayim B'Rosh Hashana V'Yachas B'Yom Kippurim. Why does it say two Tefillas Rosh Hashanah and one Yom Kippur? Why this division? Why Rosh Hashanah has two and Yom Kippur one? And furthermore, we want to also know Ve'ezehu, the Malchi, Zichrenis, Ve'ezehu, the Shefes. Which one? We have three times mentioned in the Torah Teruah. Which one of the three times pertains to Malchis? Which one pertains to Zichrenis? Which one pertains to Malchis? To Shefes. And all this, we want to understand clearly. The understanding for this comes from Pnimis HaTorah. Olehovin calls them to understand all of the above, and then some. Tzorich lahagdim. Tchila. We need to first proceed and discuss a very principal Indian. The Hine Yodua, it is known, meaning it is known in Kabbalah Sforim, the Tachlis Briyas V'Yizhavos Ha'elameis, that the end purpose, Tachlis means the end purpose of the creation and coming into being of the worlds. V'Tachlis HaKavono, and the end purpose in the intent, Be'iridas HaNeshama Beguf, in the neshama coming down into the body. I'll explain in a few minutes. Hu bigdei lahamshir gilui eirin so ba'elomis. It is for the purpose. What is the ultimate accomplishment in the creation of the world, and then the neshama coming down into the world? It is to be mamshich, to bring down and to reveal Gilui Ein Sof Ba'elamis, the revelation of Oir Ein Sof in worlds, Alidei Torah Mitzvahs, through the process of Torah Mitzvahs. First of all, just to be connected to what we started, where do we come to talk about Tachlis Briyas Ha'elamis? Because Rosh Hashanah is Tchilas Maaseh. What do we need to accomplish Rosh Hashanah? A rejuvenation of the world. And so therefore we want to discuss and understand what is world all about. How do we understand what is world all about? We will understand what is ultimately accomplished in this whole process. So we know what its original purpose is. Because we know the klal, that soif maaseh b'machshava tchila, that which happens at the end, that which is concluded, that which is ultimately accomplished, this is what was originally in the original intent. This is called notes tchiloson b'soifon. Notes tchiloson b'soifon. It's a lotion in Sefer Yitzira. Notes means it's invested. The tchila. Na'al.
What is?
Yeah, notes. Nun ayin vov tzadik.
Nauts.
Nauts, yeah. Nauts tchiloson b'soifon. That the chila, the beginning, is invested in the end. Where do you see what the beginning is? When a person does something, while he is actively pursuing it, you don't know what he's pursuing. He knows someplace deep down in his mind what he's pursuing, but it's not obvious in his actions. When he finally reaches his end and says, "Oh, that's what I was looking for," so then you know what he was looking for. It's a very simple, obvious concept. So, what is the ultimate purpose in the creation? So there are two questions over here. One is tachlis briyas v'izhavos ha'elamis, the tachlis in the creation of the world, and then the second question is tachlis hakavona b'riz neshama guf. What is the ultimate intent in bringing the neshama down into the guf? These are two distinct activities, two distinct aspects in the creation. Because the creation is a creation of world. What is world? World is essentially oilam, hell. It's essentially a process, a place where everything follows the process of teva. Teva means that it follows in a certain natural order, so that you do not see that it has any meaning and any purpose. It just follows its natural order. Cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, and you don't see where it's coming, where it's starting, where it's ending. You don't see that there's any particular purpose in it. That's mean teva. It's malim. It conceals the intent, it conceals the meaning, or any meaning behind it, or any chayas in it. That's mean teva. And then into this world comes a neshama. What is a neshama? A neshama is something which is not worldly at all. Neshama is godly, it's not worldly. We have had various discussions regarding, as we discussed several times in the past, Seichel Bahami, Seichel Anushi, and Seichel Aleki. We haven't gotten to the tachlis of that yet, but there is a Seichel Aleki. What is the neshama is Aleki? What does it Aleki mean? The neshama, as opposed to other functions here, the neshama means the neshama Aleki is the godly neshama, as opposed to the nefesh of the person. The nefesh of the person, the natural soul, so to speak, the nefesh abamis, the nefesh anushis, can relate to world. It can accept. Like you say, oh, there is a natural world. I see nature. I can relate to it. What does it mean I can relate to it? Not only can I relate to it in the sense that I see that it's there and I can accept it, but if in fact, as a matter of fact, I'm satisfied, I can live in it. Even in terms of Seichel Nanushi, as we discussed, the human Seichel does not demand that there should be an ultimate purpose in his life. As long as he lives a normal and decent life, I'm not doing anything bad, I'm being kind to my neighbors, and so he is satisfied. In other words, his whole purpose is within a worldly context. I am living a decent worldly life, and that's acceptable from that perspective. The neshama, not only is it not acceptable to the neshama that it should live in a natural world, it can't relate to a purposeless existence, to an ultimately purposeless existence. But moreover, much more than that, the neshama does not recognize the presence of world. The neshama recognizes only the presence of God. World doesn't exist. It can't relate to it. And this neshama, this godly neshama, came down into the guf, into the world. This is a completely separate function, separate activity. As it says, as a matter of fact, and I'm just elaborating briefly so we could see that this is actually expressed in the Torah. The Torah relates how Hashem created the whole world and all the creatures in the world. Up until, Adam Harish, everything that was created in the world, up Adam Harish, not including, came from the earth. Came from the earth. It says in the pasuk, "Tachi ha'aretz desha," let the earth produce produce, growth. Then the fowl and the fish came out from the waters and also from the earth, and then the behemoths, the beasts, the animal world, also came forth from the earth. And when it says that it came forth from the earth, means that it came forth from the earth in its entirety. Not that the goof came from the earth and something, and the neshama, the nefesh, from someplace else. From the earth came the goof and the nefesh. And all the creatures, a behemoth was created to start with. A goof with a nefesh. It became its life and its goof are not separable, are not two separate entities. Just like a tree is also alive, but you don't say it has a nefesh independent of the tree. This is its level of existence, that it's tzemachas. Its goof and the nefesh are in very close proximity to each other. The nefesh is only capable of giving sustenance to a plant that grows. The nefesh hachayo of an animal has that quality that it can give chayas to a goof that can grow, that can move, live. The Odom Rishon was created in a different fashion. Odom Rishon's goof was first formulated from the earth, and it was just a body, a lifeless body. And then, Vayipach be'apov nishmas chay. Then Hashem put a neshama of life into this goof. The neshama and the goof are not one and the same thing at all. Of course, it's not one and the same thing. In an animal also, but in an animal they are in very close proximity. But here they are in totally different worlds. This comes from the earth and this comes from God. Two different, directly from God. This is two the representatives of God, and it's completely a separate source and a separate representation. It represents something else. It does not represent the neshama that gives life to the goof. It represents something on its own, independent of the goof. It is within the goof, but it is really something completely higher than the goof. So therefore, there is this question. The Rebbe created the world, that's one thing. What is the purpose of that? And then there is also the Neshevesh brought the Neshama into the goof. So he explains, it is known that the Tachlis, the Tachlis, the ultimate purpose of both of these phenomena, they actually come together. It's one purpose. What is the purpose? The purpose is that the neshama should reveal, should reveal godliness, where the neshama to reveal godliness in itself, we don't need to come down into the goof. The neshama hasn't done it all. If it came down to the goof, means that the purpose is that the neshama should reveal godliness in the world, and that which was created separately on a different level completely. I'm repeating the words here. Lahamshir giloi eirin soy boi lomes al deitero mitzvahs. Lahamshir, the word lahamshir means to draw. The giloi eirin soy, the revelation of the infinite light in the world through Teiro mitzvahs. From these words alone, we can see that the union of Ein Sof is there whether you mamshich it or you don't mamshich it. But what's missing in the world is the Gilui of Ein Sof. Not that you have to mamshich Ein Sof. Ein Sof is there all the time. But what the Neshama has to accomplish is to be mamshich the Gilui Ein Sof, so that the Ein Sof is revealed in the world. This natural world that in and of itself represents a completely natural order. A natural order means that it is entirely within its own form. It's not unsafe. Doesn't have doesn't have an infinite significance. And this, in this world, it should be a gilui, it should be a revelation that no, there is Ein Sof, that it has an infinite significance. And how is this accomplished? By mitzvahs, by means of Torah mitzvahs. In brief, Torah mitzvahs. Torah tells us that you should know. Torah tells us what the world is about. Where does the world come from? From the world itself, you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know from the world itself that God created the world. What tells us that God created the world? The Torah tells us. Bereshis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'ha'aretz. Once you learn it from the Torah, then you can start understanding and seeing the limits in the world. But on the world, inside the world itself, you can follow a natural process and never get to its end. And then there is the mitzvahs. The mitzvahs is what engages the world itself to it shows, yes, there is a world, but what is the world? Why is the world there thusly? Because it lends itself to be doing the Hashem's will. In other words, in this natural world, the inyan from Gilui Ein Sof in the world means the inyan from Torah mitzvahs. What that means is not only that you should know that the world was created by Hashem and it has a source and a purpose and so forth. What it does is, it says that Hashem, in His glory and His greatness, wants something very specific in the world. He wants you to put on tefillin. He wants to keep Shabbos. He wants to do this mitzvah, that mitzvah. Which means what? That this finite little act, this natural little act, actually represents and contains a godly will which is Ein Sof. This means that in the world there is Gilui Ein Sof. You can be Megalo Ein Sof and say, the world is nothing. The real thing is Ein Sof. But then you're not Megalo Ein Sof in the world. Then you disregard the world and say that's a lie. The real thing is Ein Sof. Gilui Ein Sof Bo'elam means, the Torah mitzvahs means that you show that there is Ein Sof in the world itself. That there is a godly will in every aspect of the world, small or big. And this is accomplished Torah mitzvahs. Weiter. V'hu inyan yichud Ein Sof hasevel kol ha'almin v'male kol ha'almin. This is also the inyan that is referred to as the yichud, as the unifying of Ein Sof hasevel of kol ha'almin. The Ein Sof that is Ein Sof literally, that it's only Sof that can only be relating to the world in a makif, in a Sof manner. Sof means it surrounds. The reason it can only relate in that fashion is because it's Ein Sof, and Ein Sof, infinity doesn't have a place in the world. And it's united with Malikulam. It's united in that which is in the world itself, which actually sustains every detail in the world. Das means Yichud Ein Sof b'Seivikulam b'Malikulam. You take a string of tzitzis, which is a very specific creation. Like we said before, Yediyah b'Hislapshus. It's a very specific, you can feel and touch it. And you make tzitzis out of it. And then this tzitzis now represents God's will, Rotzin. And Rotzin is a makif. is a soivev. So therefore, this little thing becomes now greater than world. And as we say, prior to every mitzvah, in the preparation to every mitzvah, L'shem yichud kutsho brihu ushchintei. Our meaning is we say it only once in the day before davening, but essentially there are those who say it before every mitzvah, but we say it once a day. It applies to all the mitzvahs that follow. What is the saying? That we say we're doing this l'shem, in the intent and for the sake of yichud kutsho brihu ushchintei, to unite the kutsho brihu, unite Hashem with His shechina. What is the kutsho brihu and shechina? The Bechinas yichud seivem kolam v'memale kolam. The shechina is called the memale kolam because the word shechina means that which comes down and rests on the bottom. That's what shechina means, to dwell, that which dwells on the bottom, which comes under the world. Kutsho brihu refers to that which is higher than the world, and the union from Torah mitzvahs is to leyachet, to unite kutsho brihu and shechina. From Sevikon and Malakon. Shesei Inyan, which is basically the Inyan that I mentioned before. Hamshochas Gilui Atzmus Eirin Soiv, the Bimamshich, to draw and to reveal, to draw the revelation of Atzmus Eirin Soiv, Shezeo Tachlis HaKavono, which is the ultimate kavana be his havos ho'elames u'biyiridas hanshom. In the creation, in the worlds coming into being, and the neshama coming down. In other words, the creation of the world by itself is not an end purpose by itself. The neshama is not an end purpose by itself. The neshama coming out into the world, that constitutes an end purpose. Ukamaimor. And as the saying is, as the Gemara says, Nisave HaKodesh Baruch Hu Liis Loi Dira B'Tachteinim. Hashem has desired to have a Dira B'Tachteinim. This is obviously it's an expression to give us an inkling. It's like a moshel type. A Dira, Hashem doesn't need a Dira. Hashem does not need a roof over his head. But it is to express the concept in our terms. Everything that we express by Hashem, we express it in our terms, so that we use our experience as a moshel to what Hashem wanted. And what is it that He wanted? Dira is like dira b'tachteinim. They should have a dira. Right, Mishkan and Mikdash, but that's only. And that's only a first step. Ultimately, the dira should be betachtoinim in the whole world. In the whole world. And what is this? What is the significance of using that term? Dira betachtoinim. Okmoi diras ho'odom. The reason that we use this term, dira betachtoinim, to understand from it what is it that really Hashem wanted. Just as the diros ha'odom, a dwelling for a person, a derech moshel, for instance, as an example. A dira is very unique in the fact that the atzmus ha'odom dor behadira, that the etzem, the essence of the person, lives in the dira. What this is referring to is there are many things that a person expresses himself through, many things that a person uses for his needs and so forth. When a person has shoes, for instance, what are the shoes for? To protect his feet when he walks on gravel or on the floor, when it's cold or it's hot or whatever it is. Protect his feet against dirt. It has a specific function. When you're lying in bed and you're sleeping, you take your shoes off. Because then the shoes are not only not useful, but they're detrimental. This illustrates actually the entire spectrum of a person's activities and usage in the world. Everything that a person needs in the world has a specific use. And under certain specific times, certain specific conditions, for a specific activity. When he is not in that condition, and when he is not involved in that activity, he does not need everything except for a dira. A dira, a person eats in a dira, he sleeps in a dira, he learns in a dira, he talks in a dira, he relaxes in a dira. Everything is in the dira. And this Indian that everything is in a dira is not simply saying that in order to do all of his activities he needs a dira. There is even a further step. When he is not involved in any activities, where is he? In the dira. By him having a dira, he establishes a place for himself in the world. Not for any particular function, for any particular activity. In other words, the dira represents and contains his etzem. This is called etzem. His very essence. Not as he expresses himself in any particular activity, for any particular function, but he as such, as a human being. This is the specific meaning, the narrow meaning of what the Gemara uses the word dira, or the Medrash, dira. Dira means a dwelling to represent the concept of containing the essence, rather than allowing for his activity, for functioning there. If Hashem wants to be a supervisor of the world, he wants the world to conduct itself according to certain rules, godly rules, whatever it is, to do good and not to do bad. If that were the limit, so to speak, the definition of Hashem's presence in the world, to make sure that people in the world live act according to the principles of proper world behavior, then it doesn't apply. Then Hashem has a dira. Then he is functionally supervising the world. It's a function. What is the function? Supervising and making sure that things run according to the way they should. When is that activity applicable? When you need that function, we need to supervise. The union of dira applies beyond supervision. Dira means the presence. So when you say Hashem wanted, dira b'tachtenim means he wanted to have a presence in the world, not just supervisory activity and guiding the world. A presence. This is where the word dira comes in. And this is what a presence means, that he wanted, this is what he means, the atzmus ha'odom dor behadira. That the person, the very essence of the person, lives in the dira. Similarly, it's applicable to Milo Kaviochel, so to speak, by Hashem. That what is the desire of Hashem with the world? That Atzmus Ein Sof should be Begilu Lamat. What means Atzmus Ein Sof? Not his function, not his Seichel and Midas, but his presence. His very essence and his very presence. This is it for today.
About the place when you say El Shayin, Kush Abli, Kush Shmitira, right? So you say that Kosh Baruch Hu is one who is Baba, so it's also the same thing as to say Soy Kolam and Mal Kolam. Yeah, that's the same.
Kuch Abli is.
Soy Kolam and
Shkinta is a Mal.
So you want that HaKadosh Baruch Hu should be revealed in the world through His Shechina? What does it mean to make the union between the HaKadosh Baruch Hu should be from the Shechina? Shechina is already here, right?
Right. And
It's the presence of the world, right?
right. And the Kuchabriel should be revealed in that Shechina.
In that Shechina. So alright. So Shechina here doesn't yeah. It is presence of godliness which is concealed, yeah?
Right. Shechina means when Hashem comes down to create the world.
The Malakot.
The Malakot. So that's like the functioning aspect.
It's like Or Sof, which is not the goal, which is
No, this is a functioning. This is the action, the activity.
right, but it's not revealed. It's not Begilui.
It's Begilui in the sense that he is active, but it's not Begilui in the sense that this is a Elokus. Because you see it just the action rather than the Elokus.
Okay.
Alles has to next time let you understand. But it's not revealed. There are two aspects in a person's action. Okay? When you see this cup moving, you see two things.
Right.
You see the cup moving.
Yeah.
When you look up, who's moving it? Oh, I'm moving it. Two separate things. But when you see the cup moving,
Yeah.
you only see the movement of the cup, not who is moving it.
I don't understand. I see you moving it.
Because you see the whole picture together.
Right.
Okay?
But in the for
In
analogy.
concept, right? You see the movement, and
Right,
then you
okay.
say, okay, where is the movement coming from?
Meaning the purpose, yeah, to say something. Just
Who is
sound.
moving it?
Right.
So there are two separate things. In the creation, you only see that something is moving it, but who is moving it? That's a separate thing.
This freaking head is so terrible.
I'm gonna make a yichud between Kuchabriel and Shechina.
Wow, that's cool. That's very nice. If you're gonna tell them how you're gonna do it, and we're also gonna do it.
Huh?
How are you going to do it? You going to sleep? Torah mitzvahs.